Hear the clanging of the cowbell. Feel the reservation roar. 2 teams, 1 postseason. We cap off the drive of 2018 with the extra point.
Well, the last time Mississippi State played a football game, the Bulldogs visited Ole Miss for the annual Egg Bowl. Already up 7-0 in the second frame. Nick Fitzgerald used his legs to complete an 8-play, 86-yard drive. That made it 14-0. That was on the ground, this through the air, and it proved to be the dagger, too. With just 25 ticks before intermission, Fitzgerald found Dedrick Thomas on a 9-yard hookup. State would go on to win the Egg Bowl. Final score 35-3, and what will be the team's final game of 2018. Alongside Rob J., I'm Josh Jackson. You know, Tuesday, the MSU Bulldogs will make their school record, Rob, 9th consecutive bowl appearance.
Wow, that has got to be more than any other team or along that line.
No doubt about it.
Absolutely. Well, Mississippi State takes on Iowa again, and joining me now to talk about this game against Iowa is Earl Arms. He has a recap of the 2018 campaign.
Despite a couple bumps in the road, the Mississippi State Bulldogs able to get that coveted New Year's Bowl with a trip to Tampa.
It started with 4 non-conference wins to start the season, including a 31-10 victory against Kansas State in Manhattan. MSU giving up a total of 26 points in those 4 games. The next 4 games, though, not as smooth. 1-3 to start the SEC season, including a loss to the old coach, Dan Mullen, and his Florida Gators. After scoring just 3 points against LSU, the offense finally able to get things going their next 2 games, getting some double-digit wins against Texas A&M and Louisiana Tech at home. And after being shut out by the defending national champs, the Bulldogs answering with convincing wins over Arkansas and Ole Miss, closing their regular season with a 35-3 Egg Bowl win in Oxford.
The Bulldogs finishing the conference season at 4-4, but at 8-4 overall, they earned an invitation to play the Iowa Hawkeyes out of the Big Ten, the first time these 2 schools will ever meet on the football field.
All right, thanks so much, Earl. You know, January 1st, Mississippi State making its 22nd bowl appearance. You know, the Bulldogs are only one of 5 SEC schools to go bowling every season this decade. They won their last 3, too, picking up a win over Louisville last year and dubs over Miami of Ohio and NC State, respectively, the previous 2 seasons.
I think it's incredibly positive momentum, and to come out of the regular season 8-4 and have no bowl game with a chance to get 9, you know, I know in a lot of ways, you know, this is the year we were building towards and all that stuff, and no one gets more disappointed when we lose a game than me, but I'm trying to get this program off the Haley's Common Plan and to get something a little more seasonal, right? A lot of positive strides this season, and it's a lot to build on for a bowl game in next season.
Yeah, that bowl game he speaks of pits the Bulldogs against the Hawkeyes of Iowa. Rob J. breaking down the Big Ten boys. Rob?
Well, you know, Josh, according to pundits, Mississippi State has a 61% chance of winning this game, even though Iowa averages around 3 points or more per game than the Bulldogs. Now, the Hawkeyes enter their matchup with Mississippi State looking like the Pittsburgh Steelers. They may be looking like Southern Miss as they are riding a 3-game losing streak after starting the year off to a very hot start at 8-2.
I really haven't seen them play. And then I know statistically, you just look at scores, you know, not many people are getting points against these guys. So I know they're a very good defensive team, and coincidentally there too, the coordinator that's down there at Mississippi State was on Coach Franklin's staff, the original staff at Penn State, just like Coach Moorhead. So there's some ties to the Big Ten, I guess, that way.
All right, again, that game kicks off January 1st in Tampa. Back over to Josh Jackson with a very special guest, Josh.
That's right, Rob. Oftentimes the team goes as the quarterback goes. Speaking of quarterbacks, we've got one of the most decorated signal callers in MSU history, Mr. Wayne Mackin, the man, the myth, the legend there. We'll start. We'll get to some of the other signal callers that have come after you, but let's talk a little bit about your career. Most career passing yards when you graduated, took him to the SEC championship game there, first SEC West title. A little bit about your experience at Mississippi State.
Well, it was the biggest experience I've had going and playing football. You know, my experience at Starkville was one that I will always remember. We had some great teams, great defenses, and most definitely great players. We had that go-get-it attitude, so it was one of the things that I really enjoyed while I was there.
Yeah, and you graduated as the all-time leading passer at Mississippi State. Some guy named Dak Prescott that a lot of these MSU fans know a lot about. He would go on to break them, but records, as they say, were meant to be broken. Talk about that, I guess, building the foundation and allowing Dak and some of these other guys like Nick Fitz and Keaton to grow. Man, just how special of a player was he?
Well, you know, first of all, to have your records being retransitioned to a different position by a guy named Dak Prescott is something you always remember. You know, again, my kids, they always talk about they want to meet Dak, and so you know they kind of forget, you know, Dad played too.
Yeah,
but
don't forget about Wayne.
Yeah, but hey, but you know it's all good. But the biggest thing is that you know I remember my freshman year going there. We actually the stadium was small, but we started winning. We started seeing production. We started seeing construction. So that's something I'm always going to be proud of. You know, the game, you know, when I played, it was 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Everybody knew you were throwing on third down, and it was up for the quarterback to be that game manager and also the person to get you out at third and long. Now the game has changed where coaching theories have kind of evolved. They got rid of that fullback, and they say, why am I going to hit this fullback with this linebacker where I can pull him outside and he block himself?
You probably like that a lot better.
Hey, you know, I know a lot of quarterbacks that were like that. Matter of fact, me and Romero talk about it all the time.
No doubt.
Who was in that all type of offense.
Awesome. Wayne Mackin, the man, the myth, the legend. Thanks so much for joining us. Arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play at Mississippi State. Folks, we're just getting started. On the other side of the break, fresh off of a SWAC championship and Celebration Bowl appearance, we check in with the Alcorn State Braves. December 1st, 2018, history was made. For the first time ever, Alcorn State hosted the SWAC championship, and what was a good game, too. Jackson Southern tied with the Braves in a second, but right before the break, you see him here. Noah Johnson called his own number and would not be denied, willing his way into the end zone. ASU up 7 at the half. Deshaun Waller put the nail in the coffin. Oh, yeah. You don't want to tackle that guy. Scoring from 14 yards out in the fourth quarter, the Braves would hold the Jags scoreless in that frame, picking up the 37-28 win. How about that? Fred Mcnair won his first SWAC title since taking over as head coach of the Braves. Welcome back, folks. Third time was a charm for the man at the helm. In season 3, well, he successfully claimed the championship at his alma mater.
Thank God, you know, just give me an opportunity to come in and be the head coach of this football program. And, you know, I can't say enough about how they gave me an opportunity to do things I want to get done here at this university and grow the young men up, not only as a football player, but as individuals.
Mcnair would go on to be named the SWAC Coach of the Year. 2 of his players also earned major conference honors. Quarterback Noah Johnson was tabbed Offensive Player of the Year, and tailback Deshaun Waller took home Newcomer of the Year hardware. In the house with us is the Coach of the Year himself, Coach Fred Mcnair, the original. We have to say it right. The original Air Mcnair.
That's right, all right, what's up, bro?
SWAC championship, Coach. You finally brought it home. Third time was a charm. Let's talk about that one.
You know, it is great, man. You know, to have that honor. You know, third time a charm. You know, we talked about it, you know, the beginning of the year when we first came into camp, how we want to do this thing. And I think the young men was up for the challenge, and they did a great job of claiming it, you know, and throughout the whole time and the whole process of the camp, throughout the whole season, you know, adversity hit, and I told them in spite of, we're going to win the SWAC championship. So those guys were very good about it.
Yeah, and Coach, you know, to get to the Celebration Bowl, you beat Jackson State. We have a guy here, long snapper here, he's still crying about it, Ross Anderson. But the Celebration Bowl, man, what was that experience like for you, Coach?
It was great. It was great. More for the young men that played the game, Rob, than for me. I was excited for those guys to be able to go back to Atlanta, you know, after the first trip. Those guys, some of the guys were still there. You know, just go back and play another Celebration Bowl, I thought was great.
And lastly here, cover not bare. You've got Noah Johnson, who's the offensive player of the year. Deshaun Waller returning as well, newcomer. That's a good big-time back there, Deshaun Waller.
Anytime you have a nuclear guys coming back like that's been there and played no kind of games, have experience, and as Noah Johnson, his first year as just a starting quarterback, is always good. And he got better as the season went on. And when P.J. Simmons went down, the first game we played Southern, Deshaun Waller came in and did an outstanding job of carrying the football for us. And we leaned on him, and he was our bell cow. So, one of those guys, you have to do a threat there with those guys. So with Noah and Deshaun in the backfield, did an outstanding job for us.
Coach, well, I'm saying it right now. Get this man a pay raise, extension, the whole nine. Let's make it happen, Coach Mcnair.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Stay there, Coach. Don't get called now.
Yes.
Coach McNair's Braves won't have much time to rest. They're going to get right into the 2019 season in actually a couple of months here, getting ready for that one. And Earl Arms has a preview. They open with USM.
Fred McNair's Braves won't have any chance to rest to start the season beginning 2019 with a trip to Hattiesburg.
That's right. Alcorn's current coach is facing off against their former coach. Jay Hobson going to Southern Miss after 4 seasons in Lorman, winning 2 SWAC championships in his last 2 seasons there. Coming off their own SWAC championship, McNair leads the Braves against the Golden Eagles to start the 2019 season.
August 31st, 2019 is when they'll make that trip to play the Golden Eagles.
All right, thanks so much, Earl. Everyone deserves a second chance. MSU defensive lineman Jeffrey Simmons, well, he got one. The comeback story of the projected first rounder when we return. Welcome back. He's a projected first rounder for the 2019 NFL Draft and set to make millions, according to pundits. A far cry from the struggles Jeffrey Simmons faced just weeks after he signed with Mississippi State. 16 WAPT's Marcus Hunter explains.
Before the ink could really dry on a Jeffrey Simmons' letter of intent to play football for Mississippi State, it seemed like his playing career was in jeopardy. Weeks after National Signing Day, Simmons was charged with 2 misdemeanors after video surfaced of him hitting a woman who was in a fight with his sister. At the time, many were saying Simmons should never be allowed to play football again. However, then Mississippi State head coach Dan Mullen said there was more to the story than what was seen in that 10-second clip.
I saw 10 seconds of video, and that's all they knew. And I think after having the discussion on the team and the entire situation, I think there was a lot more comfort with everybody on the team with him being part of our football family.
My teammates, it speaks a lot of volume from them. Nobody ever judged me from that mistake, because it could have happened, because everybody has sisters, everybody has mom, aunt.
After a few days, Mullen and then athletic director Scott Strickland chose to honor Simmons' scholarship, giving him a second chance.
When I sat down and talked to my mom, about this, telling her that they're going to accept me, I came in tears, because, just thinking back from, all the other things that happened with, with men and women, people don't get second chance from this, especially, men hitting women.
Simmons rewarded the Bulldogs' faith in him by becoming the best football player in the state in just 3 years, taking home this year's Connelly Trophy, a rare feat by a defensive player. Last week, he announced this will be his last season at MSU. He will be entering the NFL Draft and is a projected top 10 pick. His coaches at State already know what kind of player one NFL team will be getting.
The measurables, the productivity, and then the the intangibles. I think Jeffrey's a unique mix of all 3 of those in the sense that he checks off all the boxes. When he goes to the combine and tests, he's going to blow those out of the water.
He'll bring that aggression. He'll bring that desire to be great. He'll bring that passion. And then obviously he's got playmaking ability.
Simmons has 1 more game left in his college career that he is very focused on. He will be with his team next week when they play Iowa in the Outback Bowl. Once the game is over, he says, then he'll focus on the next level.
I know that everything will be strictly business, trying to get, paid. That's a bigger thing, trying to get a contract. So, that's going to be my thing, Like I said, I'm going to miss the campus. The people, people around here are fantastic, Just the workers in the union, I'm going to miss all that, so.
Simmons is leaving Mississippi State after earning a 4.0 grade point average. He says he will miss campus life in Starkville, but will be back to finish getting his degree. Marcus Hunter, 16 WAPT Sports.
Wow, I talk about a remarkable story there, and I like that he's actually talking about that
Absolutely.
too, Rob.
Yeah.
Joining us is Jake Wimberly from ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Also the man, the myth, the legend here. All things Mississippi
My pleasure,
State.
guys. Thanks for having me.
No doubt
what you guys
about
do.
it.
Of course, it's good to be a part of what y'all are doing this weekend.
No doubt about it. Mississippi State facing Iowa. And we were just talking about that with Jeffrey Simmons. Some kids would rather not talk about that, but I like that he's transparent, and it shows to me if you're a draft expert or your team, look, he's open, he's admitted that he's messed up, and now he's ready to fix it.
He has. Look, he's owned this thing, and when all Jeffrey Simmons has done is really taken that incident and learned from it. He's grown from it, not had an issue off campus, not had an issue outside of football, and not only that, he's give back to the community. He's done everything the right way on and off the field, and look, my hat's off to the young man, and thankfully we live in a society that still have second chances. Yeah. And sure, that'll come up in the draft a little bit. I'm sure he'll get questioned about that, but to me it's kind of a non-story at this point, not to diminish the people that was involved in that. Yeah. But I think Jeffrey's done everything the right way, and I think that when you see it's going to pay off for him, he's going to be a first-round pick. And so far, he's done everything he's supposed to do.
No doubt.
And Jake, I'm sorry, Jack, but Jake, how does Mississippi State keep getting these defensive linemen, man? I mean, you got Chris Jones, you got Fletcher Cox. Is this defensive line university?
It's starting to be that way, especially in the state of Mississippi, right? It's interesting. Ole Miss, wide receiver U, Mississippi State defensive line U, and I think what we see, you guys know this, you see these guys see their peers in front of them going on and being productive. You mentioned Fletcher Cox and Chris Jones, and then, you got Pernell McPhee and several others that have gone on. And now these guys are looking like Jeffrey Simmons, and you see some of these other guys, they see that Mississippi State's putting, quality defensive linemen that are playing long time in the NFL, and it's paying off for them, just like Ole Miss with wide receivers.
Yeah, same there. And another one's Montez Sweat. People forget about that guy as well. He's really good. You mentioned second chances a minute ago. Speaking of second chances, we're going to talk a little about Joe Moorhead. Early on, a couple of those losses, Florida, Kentucky, MSU fans didn't really want to give him a second chance, but it seems like as the season progressed, he finally got things right, and I think the main thing was just let Nick Fitzgerald run the ball.
Yeah, just, and I think we see this in a lot of aspects of football. Urban Meyer had this problem when he came in to the state of Florida from Utah, and there's a story out when they got beat down at LSU, got beat pretty bad. Him and Dan Mullen were on a plane ride back and said, hey, we've got to change some things. It's not going to work exactly how we thought in the SEC. I think Joe Moorhead saw that after 2 losses, that, hey, these guys play a little different brand of defense. And even though I have a vision of my offense, I'm going to have to kind of fit my offense around my players. And I think you saw that second half of the season. He saw that, hey, let's do what Mississippi State does well, which is run the football with Fitzgerald and with Kylan Hill and Arius Williams. And then, hey, we'll try to throw the football down the road. Maybe, when the opportunity, gives itself a chance to do that. But I think he saw that. He had to learn that the hard way.
He's proven he's a great runner. Lastly here, if you had to grade Coach Moorhead, how would you do so this first year?
I would grade him a B-. B-. I mean, you're coming off a season where a lot of people expected them, myself included, to win 10 games. For whatever that's worth, and I felt like that team was good enough to do that with the defense we saw, led the nation in scoring. You see all the defensive talent on there with Jonathan Abrams, and you mentioned Jeffrey Simmons and Montez Sweat. You get the Florida game back, they may can win that. You get the Kentucky game back, they may can win that. But nonetheless, a great season, I think, for Mississippi State. Look, if you'd have told Mississippi State fans 10 years ago, you're going to go 8-4 and go to the Outback Bowl, they'd have took it running and running. And look, he's doing a good job on the recruiting trail. I think Joe Moorhead's going to be fine at Mississippi State.
Awesome. Can't beat that in the first season there. Well, thanks so much, Jake Wimberly.
Thank you so much.
ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We've got more. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Extra Point, Rob. You're having too much fun out here.
With these guys out here, man. I don't know what to say about this crew here, man. They are some good guys.
No doubt about it. We're about to wrap this thing up. We're going to finish with what we're calling 3 and Out. We're picking our top 3 plays from the 2 bowl teams' last game there.
All right, how about this? Let's take a look at the Egg Bowl. Our first play is Nick Fitzgerald as he scores in the second quarter of the Egg Bowl as he takes it on the ground. He was hampered last year with that ankle, and a little tentative coming into this season, but he scored right there.
Number 2, we've got Noah Johnson breaking loose from Alcorn State for a 60-yard touchdown run in the Celebration Bowl, bringing Alcorn within 2. This man, I mean, he put the team on his shoulders, Rob. Finished with 255 yards of total offense and 2 touchdowns. Almost willed them to victory, but they fell 2 points shy to North Carolina A&T. What you got for number 1?
Where he's coming back. Fitzgerald again. It's Nick Fitzgerald again. This time he goes to the air, and he hits Dedrick Thomas for the touchdown, and that, you know, just on the ground in the air is Nick Fitzgerald. And your prediction on the Outback Bowl?
Good question. I'm going to say I've got Mississippi State winning this one. I don't think they'll win it by as much as many people say that they will. I've got them, believe it or not, I think they've got 2 really good defenses. I've got a 21-17 win for MSU.
You know, Iowa can score a lot of points.
They can.
They can score a lot of points from Mississippi State's defense. That's where it all begins, right there. Yeah.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
We're going to wrap up the show, but don't forget, Mississippi State will face Iowa Tuesday in the Outback Bowl. Kickoff is at 11 a.m. from Raymond James Stadium. You can watch the matchup on ESPN2. We'll be heading down this weekend to join the team. Be sure to tune in to WAPT and visit WAPT.com for your Outback Bowl coverage. Until then, for Rob J., I'm Josh Jackson saying enjoy the holiday season, and remember, folks, to take some time to show them the teeth, Rob. Smile. Have a great one.